Welcome to the Patricia Fripp Sales Series. And I know that you are expecting to tune in and hear from me and my sidekick, Paul, and our very good friend and colleague, Troy. However, despite some technology problems, Paul and I are here and well, and Troy will come back on another day. So do not worry. And so I will tackle the subject from my point of view of how we change our sales techniques in a changing environment. We will look at specifically how you communicate when you're online rather than over across the table from each other. The change that we have less time to get our message across, and then also how we prove that we are the best option, and how can we focus our conversation so that our prospect knows, wow, they did their homework. Now Paul, why don't we tell our friends how they engage with us, answer the polls, and then bring up the first poll.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a chat window. Within that chat box, you'll be able to ask your short, specific questions throughout the call. Remember to put those questions in sooner rather than later so we do have time to get to them. In addition to the chat window, in that same area, you'll see polling questions. When a polling question comes up, you'll have about 60 seconds. Click your answer, click vote, and then we'll discuss the results during the call. And we're going to go ahead and bring up our first poll, which is, are you selling or do you manage salespeople? Again, you'll have about a minute to answer that, and we'll discuss the results when they come up.
One of the changes that I have noticed is dealing with many of my corporate clients, and even in our business. Paul and I, of course, are a smaller business than you might be part of. However, more and more communication online. The technology that we're using now is Webinar Jam. And we find with many sales teams all over the country, in fact, all over the world, that it is easier to deliver presentations when everyone can tune in from their own cubicle or their own office. So this is one technology that we use, and it might interest you to know, if this is the first time you've tuned in for our series, that this session a couple of hours after will be on YouTube, that you can, as long as you've got the link, you can find forever. And you, with the magic of technology, if you signed up for our event and you're not online, that's another, of course, change in how we do business. You don't always have to be available when events are going on. When they're online, you will immediately, or 3 hours later, get the replay link and watch anytime you want. So, Paul, can you tell us the answer to the poll, please?
Absolutely. 82% are selling and 18% are managing salespeople.
All right, good. I am reminded of a friend of mine, John Coe, very successful sales person, and he got promoted to sales manager. And one morning, his first day on the job as the sales manager, his boss called and said, John, can we have breakfast? Well, John's smart enough to not say no to the boss. And the advice that he gave him was, John, if you do what made you successful as a sales professional, you will fail as a sales manager. It is so often easier and faster to say, I'll do it myself, or let me talk to the client, where in reality, what we have to do, of course, is we have to teach people to do what made you successful as the sales manager. So let's start. So online, Webinar Jam for large meetings. If you are not familiar with Zoom, which is a great technology. All our client meetings and many of my small training programs are done online with Zoom, because with that technology you can see each other. It's as if you're sitting across the desk, except you can see both of you. You can record the conversation, you can screen share, and if I have a coaching session with a client or a sales team or a preparation meeting for an online training, that we get people in the right mindset, we can send it to them after with the recording. So that is a great technology. And then, of course, as you probably know, if you have been involved with any training, whether you are a trainer, you are being trained, that the dirty little secret in the training industry is, one, it doesn't matter how good the content, how good the speaker, how enthusiastic and interested the audience is, 70% of what you learned, you probably will have forgotten 2 weeks after. Now, hopefully the 30% makes a major difference, but the best way for reinforcement and repetition is online learning. Paul, in a little while, let's go over and show our audience FRIPPVT, which is an example of what we have for our online training. And what Paul will show you one of the chapters, just the beginning, on webinar delivery. And what we recommend with webinar delivery is that certainly at least what you do at the beginning is turn on your webcam to greet your client, to answer their questions, even if you turn it off to look at the PowerPoint presentation. So Paul, just speak up when you're ready to show them the FRIPPVT.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, well, bring it on. Good. So as you can see, actually, it's chapter 11, how to develop a dynamic webinar, because you know with the budgets that shrink, this is a very efficient way. So Paul, let's just show them the example of the quality of what is available to train and communicate with your clients.
Absolutely.
Welcome to How to Deliver a Dynamic Webinar. In this course, you will learn how to effectively communicate when delivering a webinar. What is the same? What is different? If you're ready, click the Start Training button. No matter what your level of public speaking experience, whenever you open your mouth, whether you're talking to one person or 1,000, you want to get a specific message across. Anyone who sets out to present, persuade, and propel with the spoken word faces pitfalls. As technology and shrinking travel budgets play a much more important part in our lives, you have yet another challenge. What do you do when you're communicating through a webinar? What is different about a webinar presentation? How do you catch and keep your audience? Here are some practical and time-proven ideas that will build your confidence, help you look like a seasoned professional, and impress your viewers.
All right, and we're back.
Okay, perfect. So one of the ways that you can use is use your webcam, even if it's not all the time. And if you are not comfortable with webinars yet, what I often recommend my clients do is bring someone on your team into your office, because it's easier to talk to somebody than to the audience that you can't see. And of course, if the audience can't see you, you can tape your notes to your computers, you can have a script. I would also recommend that if you if you print out your PowerPoint presentation that you're going to show, that you have that on your desk. It's just a matter of having as many crutches to make you comfortable. And don't waffle around the same as any other presentation. If you might get a little, be polite, greet, thank them for the opportunity to demonstrate what you're going to demonstrate, and ask any questions of them before you continue. And then at each segment of your PowerPoint and your conversation, you might want to turn the webcam on again when you're answering questions about that first segment. So that's one, use technology. Secondly, when it comes to having less time to deliver your presentation, we have to remember one very important lesson, and we have some PowerPoint just to go along with this to show you the combination of how you can add variety to an online program like this. So Paul, if you would like to bring up our PowerPoint to introduce the number one philosophy to adapt in your sales presentation is to understand that everyone is more interested in themselves than they are in you. If that is the backdrop, you will never go wrong. And one way that you stand out above your competition is to have a very high versus you balance to your conversations. This is also true in emails. If you write up your email and then rewrite it without having I start your sentences, it could be as simple as, I'm sending you the brochure you requested. It could say, thank you for the opportunity to discuss our options. You will, as promised, you will be receiving the brochure. So Paul, if we move to the next one, one of my friends at the Fairmont Hotel, sales manager, called and said, Patricia, help. As you know, I'm a great salesperson one-on-one. However, I have the opportunity to deliver a presentation to a committee who's considering bringing their convention to San Francisco. And I'm really, really nervous because there's going to be 8 or 10 people. I said, come on. And I asked him the questions we should all ask ourselves before any presentation. 1, who are you addressing? Convention committee. 2, how long do you have? 8 minutes. 3, what are you selling? And he said, well, I'm not selling the Fairmont because if they come to San Francisco, they're definitely coming here. However, they're seriously considering San Diego. And the question we often overlook is, if you make the sale, how much is this worth to the Fairmont? He said $500,000. I said, let me get this right. This is $1,041.61 a second, even when you pause. This is what I recommend you do. In the next 8 minutes, which means you are acknowledging the time frame he gave you. Paul, you will decide the best decision you can make for your association and your members is to bring your convention to San Francisco in the Fairmont Hotel. So he's acknowledging the time schedule. He has been showing them around the hotel, so it's not like they don't know him. He has to introduce himself. They know him. That's 5 you or yours, 1 Fairmont Hotel. So that is an emotionally connecting opening. And then if we go to the next slide, which is transitioning into your body of your speech. San Diego is a magnificent destination, and you should go there another year. Now, understand, you don't knock your competition. You just position it compared to you. However, the reasons you should come to San Francisco this year are specific, specific, specific. This is intellectual because we have to, of course, use logic to make them think, and emotion to make a connection and to make them act. Rest assured, the 538 associates of the Fairmont Hotel will be here to serve you. And imagine, years from now, when your convention attendees are sitting around a convention hotel lobby reminiscing about the best convention they ever attended, and they remember their favorite in San Francisco at the Fairmont when you were the planning committee. So let's go on, Paul. So let's look at that and how it fits into our sales process. So here are a few basics. So Paul, remember, we need to appeal to the other person's rational self-interest. Too many salespeople say, oh, good morning. Hi, I am Joe Smith and I come from the ABC company and we've been in business for this many years. And this is what we do in our unique methodology. No, we have to focus on them. And if you've had good questions, if you've done all your pre-work before you have a more formal presentation, online or in person, the better. Next one, Paul. People make decisions for their reasons, not yours, which is why you focus exactly on what they told you. A confused mind says no. This is an old adage, and it's really true in this time that we do business, because everything is so fast. There is so many distractions. We have to be clear, concise, and credible. And the next one, Paul. Would it be helpful if people remembered what you could say? Would it be beneficial if, Paul, if you keep clicking, beneficial if a month after you talk to them, they could report to their team members or their senior executives or each other the 3 reasons other clients select you. And of course, would it be profitable if they could vividly remember and retell stories of satisfied clients? So powerful sales presentations are focused on the prospect's best outcome. Now, you have to ask good questions to make sure you know what that is and design it in your presentation, structured that their priorities or their interests or their opportunities. We want to open strong and close on a high. Scripted for specificity. Now, this is one of my pet peeves because specificity builds credibility. And I've noticed so much sloppy language getting in the sales process, even from sales leaders. One of my favorite questions is specifically, what do you mean by things? Oh, I got a bunch of leads. How many leads? Will you redefine what you mean by it? I was at the dentist yesterday with emergency and an emergency meeting. I'd had a double root canal and I have an infection. And he said, well, it's difficult to treat for where it is. And I said, what do you mean by it? What is it in a difficult place? Well, it was the infection. It wasn't my cheek. It wasn't my chin. It wasn't my tooth. It was the infection. I didn't know. And I would encourage you to record your own conversations to make sure that you hear what you're saying. Paul, the next one. We're going to use good client case studies, and let's look at the words that you use when you open your presentation. Now, remember, this is at the point you've done your research. Now, this is a more formal presentation, whether it's in person or online. And I recommend you start with congratulations. Now, what do most people start with? Paul, if we can, there. Congratulations. What are they proud of? It could be magnificent new website. It could be your stock prices increased. Whatever they are proud of, they've won an award, they are voted the best company to work for in San Diego. It could be as simple as everyone who greeted me and I saw in the hall walking to this meeting smiled, asked if I need help, and addressed me. Obviously, your core values are in place. So what are they most proud of? Then you introduce, now again, here are choices. You're not going to use them all. You're going to find what's best. You have a challenge, or you have an amazing opportunity. Keep going, Paul. Or it could be an awesome responsibility. So it could be you're most interested in and an important decision to make. So based on what they are saying, what they've told you in advance, what's most appropriate. And for example, you have a challenge. You now have 12 major competitors where 3 years ago you only had 2. It could be amazing opportunity to expand your message through social media. It could be an awesome responsibility. Now, what would that be? To select the appropriate way to prove your commitment to corporate citizenship. Could be you have an important decision to make. Do you continue with the same vendor in training that you've always used, or do you need a second vendor as a backup, or do you need to change your contract? Next slide, Paul. Now, this is when you say, do not thank people for their time. Because this is the secret. If you sound the same as everybody else, you have no advantage. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss. Now, it's how our technology, our training, our methodology can help you solve their problem, or you can become dominant in your field, whatever it is. Next one, Paul. If you have, and at this point, if you're giving more of a formal presentation, you have had help. You've had someone giving your information. Make sure you make them a hero. John has been very generous with his time and information, and he mentioned your challenges are, or your key priorities are, or you're most interested in. And this is the structure of your presentation. This presentation is structured around whatever it is, your priorities, interests, major focus, your questions and other topics of interest are welcome. Now, however you say that, that might be more formal than your world, but that is what I would say. Of course, I'm British, I'm more formal, in case we hadn't had the pleasure of meeting. Now, this works online and in person, because I am sure there are some people listening in or some people at the meeting that you might have met. But in case we've not had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Patricia Fripp, and in my role as now it could be your sales consultant, it could be your virtual speech coach, whatever it is. Now, let's look for a moment, a slight subtlety. You do not have the job yet. However, I am yours. If we were having a live seminar, I would probably ask, do you rent cars? Do you have them washed before you go back? And occasionally someone says yes, but usually people don't, because it's not our car. Whereas this way, you are belonging to them before you have the job. It's emotional connection. Again, it's simple. It doesn't necessarily give you the business, but it gives you an edge. And I don't know about you. There is only one area I was looking for in business, and that's an unfair advantage. And some of these subtleties make a difference. So you have the confidence of knowing that based on my 15 years experience with technology, or my 30 years of delivering sales training, or doing business with companies of your size and complexity. Again, what you're doing is making people feel comfortable with you before you have the job. All right, let's see what's next, Paul. I recommend that you develop a list of you-focused language, like you can feel confident. That is a good one. Perhaps you agree. How often have you, in your experience? So with that, Paul, why don't we come back just to us? And Paul, do we have any questions or comments? If there are any questions, I'll take them now before we continue.
Well, we don't have any questions so far about the content. Fred did ask, can we get a recording of this or the slides? And yes, Fred, a recording will be sent out 3 hours after the webinar started, so you will get a recording of the live session.
And yes, what we can certainly do is we can make a PDF of the slides that we use that we will send you, if that will make you happy. And I know some of you are sorry that you can't see Troy. Don't worry, we'll bring him back to you because his content is great. And what I would recommend you do, and if you can in the chat box, Paul, put Troy Harrison's website, and I would recommend that you go there and download the top 10 secrets for instantly turning your sales force around, which is a great special report. I would say the 11th way to turn your sales force around is to have them learn presentation skills training from Patricia Fripp, especially with FRIPPVT. Now, if Melanie were with us, my director of social media, who will be delivering 2 events in July. One will be just for our FRIPPVT users, and there will be an opportunity for you to have your LinkedIn profile evaluated, and we will, she will certainly give you all the secrets that we have. That's just for the FRIPPVT users on the 19th of July, which everyone will be invited to. FRIPPVT users and anyone else on our list. She'll be talking about building a LinkedIn strategy. You might remember, if you're part of our regular series, that Kurt Schaefer did an incredible job with some LinkedIn, and it was so popular we realized you wanted more information, so we will be adding that. And please do feel free to send in your questions. Now, Paul, can we ask the second poll, which is, do you sell business to business or business to consumer?
And before we get to that second poll, there was a question from Fred as well. He wants to know how you can use the tools that you've talked about so far for a written presentation, such as a request for proposal.
Well, if it's a well-written request for proposal, there's more chance, of course, that you are going to get to the next level. So with a request for proposal, Fred, you are going to use many of the same techniques as far as you-focused language. And I was talking to somebody who had asked me to send in a request for proposal, and the situation wasn't really right for me. However, he did take the time to explain to me how they selected the vendor of choice. And I was a little confused because they said, would you like to attach a PowerPoint? Well, I was thinking, is this the PowerPoint that I would use when I was training them? And no, it's a PowerPoint proving how you were so good. And this was for technical presentations. And the company that got it said, well, technical presentations are different in these specific ways. And we've done a lot of research on this, and this is what we found. So what they were doing is, one was very well illustrating with all the modern tools that are available why they are experts. They proved it, and they gave story case examples, which is of course what we teach in all our training about taking your satisfied clients with you. Any more?
That is, oh, actually, let's see here. No, we do have a result for the poll. The polling question was, do you sell business to business or business to consumer? And that was 76% are business to business and 24% are business to consumer.
All right, good. Well, I would encourage you to think, although when it's business to consumer, it's a person selling or developing a relationship and serving a person. When you're doing business with companies, it is people dealing with people who make decisions for companies. It's still a personal connection. And what I have always found works selling my services, I always like to say, it's my job to make sure you look like the hero for selecting me, or it could be for finding me. If that's of help. What I would say with business to business, you are going to have more people who are going to be making the decision. And one very important technique to have in your back pocket is the happy, satisfied client stories. Paul, can you look at the PowerPoint? Do we have the sales formula in the PowerPoint?
We certainly do.
Well, let's bring it up and show them. But however, can you see what we're doing? We are combining PowerPoint talking to you, PowerPoint talking to you, virtual demonstration on a website, interacting with you. This is all what we do to try and engage you and make this a valuable experience. So good. The formula is the story success formula. There's 3 parts to this. What we have to do is populate our sales presentations with flesh and blood characters that the person we're talking to can relate to. So 1, if you are talking to a senior vice president, your character, this example that you're using, it would be nice if the title matched. If you're talking to a technology company, this might be an example from a similar industry. It might not be exactly the same, and you might not be their competition, but it would be similar. Then use the dialogue from your customers. So it could be, I'll never forget the first time, or it could be the first time I talked to John. Now, of course, in my story with the Fairmont Hotel, the client did actually say, help. What we have to do is shrink what could have been multiple conversations into one. And it might not have actually been a help, but it might have been an implied help. And you do not lie, but what you're doing is taking the example and dramatizing it. So when I first met John, he said, help. As you know, we are a manufactured company in Cleveland, and we are So give the backstory, and you might not be able to mention your clients, but certainly give them a name and a title. And in their words, articulate what the problem was. Now, the next part of the formula is the solution, and this is what you do in your own words. Situation, solution, and that you say. So what we did for John is we followed our certain methodology, or we do the 4-step process, or we started with exactly what we would recommend with you. First of all, we do this step, we do that step, we do the 3rd step. And then the last part of this is the success. And the success is, again, in the happy client's words. Now, John, at the beginning of the story, of course, was a prospect. Now he's happy. He's a happy client. If John were here, he would tell you, I would not have believed it possible that you could increase the production in our manufactured company by 14% in the first month. And by the end of 9 months, it was increased 38%. Now you notice that is specific, but that is using the client's words. So story, success formula is situation, solution, success. You need to have a backstory, a name, and use it in the client's words. So with that, Paul, we'll come back to me. And are there any other questions?
Absolutely. Guy says, with everyone being so busy, how much time do you commit to preparation? It can take a long time to create a presentation.
Thank you, Guy. And I'm assuming a sales presentation is going to follow a certain format, just as a speech would follow a certain format. What we have to do is make sure that we find exactly. So Guy, and I know who Guy is, we're very familiar with the Fripp speech model. And so rather than points of wisdom, it would be challenge, your challenge 1, 2, 3, or your opportunity to do this would follow a 3-step process. So your general framework might be similar. What might be different is, do they call them challenges? Are they problems? Whatever their words are. And the stories and examples that you use are going to match that client. So all good salespeople are going to have multiple stories in their back pocket. What would take longer, if you have your core format, would be talking to them in advance. The longer you find out exactly what they're interested in, what their challenges are, and what the cost is to them for not solving the problem, that's where you're going to spend more of your time even than putting it into your presentation. I hope that helps. Do we have another?
Absolutely. Larry wrote in and said, well, first off, he asked if you could have gotten that 3 hours later since it's being recorded. And he just to make a little joke. And he said he's used to talking on the phone when selling business to business, but these days no one answers their phone. What should he do?
Good. And I know Larry, and Larry was, in fact, we will interview Larry in a future meeting, because he was masterful at selling. He told me one story when his proposal wasn't accepted, and he called the prospect and said, you couldn't possibly know what you're agreeing to, or you would not have not selected us, even though our option is a lot higher. Let me come to your office. And he said, look, you have to compare apples to apples. He didn't actually use those words, but he showed, look, this item here, this is not a brand drink. so he compared item and got the business. So he has some techniques he can teach us all. I agree, Larry, that it is very difficult to get anyone on the phone. I'm usually amazed. So one, what you can do, because we want to have an unfair advantage. And we interviewed Andy Paul, 0 time selling. So what gives you an edge is to immediately follow up. He said it's not only how you follow up, it's how fast you follow up. And since I helped him with a presentation and read his book, I follow up immediately. So one, even if you can't talk to them, so I would send an email thanking them for their interest, their inquiry, and say, our next logical step is to have a brief conversation to give me specifics around this. Because what you do not want to do is put a quote in an email. It could discount you. And I always say there are just too many options for me to quote. In a conversation, I can give you some options. And then I would also leave a voicemail for them saying, I've sent you an email, very much the same, look forward to having a conversation. You can also use, whether it's BombBomb or iJot, or I often make a Zoom video and attach to an email where they can actually see you, because we want to be different. And I learned this technique from Melinda Henning, who used to teach selling. And her technique, which I think is invaluable, is you want to be the most interesting voicemail that people get in the morning. So at the end of your day, before you close up, call 3 of your prospects, or call 3 of your satisfied clients, and leave the most fun, upbeat voicemail. So when people come in and hear them in the morning, because yours is more creative, more interesting, or you sound more like a fun person, chances are you're going to get the call back, or at least an email. Got your fun voicemail. Let's talk next Thursday. Any more, Paul?
Yes, actually tied into that, how many emails should you send to a prospect before you give up if they don't respond?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I'm sure Troy would probably tell you, and most sales trainers. They would probably say until people die or unsubscribe. It gets to the point. Fortunately, at this point in my career, I have more inquiries for my time than I have time. So I'm going to follow up, and I'm going to trigger to call them later. And I probably give up too early. I admit, just because I'm too busy. I will do my best attempt. Now, what we are doing, and how you were invited to this event, is we are now using Infusionsoft, not for all our emails, but for inviting people to events. So if you have ever attended any of our events, or if you're in different categories, with Infusionsoft, you will always be invited to the virtual events. So with that, you have to die or unsubscribe. I do not do that quite so much with prospects, although in the fullness of time, I probably will. What I would like to hear is, for those of you, how do you follow up? How long do you? So feel free to send those. Any more questions?
Well, we have a good one. In a written presentation, should you provide a video demonstration on a YouTube type format?
Yes, I would do that. However, if you can have video on your website, I would recommend you do that as well. So, for example, one of my business partners said, hey, Patricia, I'm sending in you know, a request to be a speaker at the conference, which YouTube clip should I send them to match? And of course, I have hundreds and hundreds of YouTube clips. However, I said, no, please go to my speaking event page. I have a page, you know, a whole dozens of video clips. We want them on my main website. So that's what I would do.
All right, and then we have, what about sending your clients a personal video if they're not responding?
Yes, I would, especially if it's a big one, a prospective client. And I would always acknowledge, you know, I know you're busy and this might not be a high priority. Just want you to know, anytime you want to talk, and I'll talk to you after hours, you can call me as early as 6:30 in the morning Pacific time.
And I think that your answer might be similar to this one, but Sandra just clarified with asking how long to pursue someone via email. It's someone that she's never heard, that they've never heard of her before. She's not speaking about someone on a list, but someone that she wants to pursue that doesn't know her. In that case, how many times before giving up?
A lot would depend on, was someone recommended to you? What is your connection? How much do you want the business? I always remember when I was a men's hairstylist, and one of my favorite clients worked with IBM. Homer Dunn. And he said, Patricia, there are 3 types of people I call on. 1, the people I have made a sale to, nurturing the relationship. 2, those who are in the sales process, and it is a very long sales process. And 3, those who at this point do not feel I have earned the right to do business with them. And I do keep in touch with them and call them and let them know that how my other clients are using our product. And he said, so when I have earned the right, they're all mine. So there's the immediate business, the business that are in your sales funnel, and then those that you are targeting. So I'll just see if there are any more questions.
Just a comment from Guy Burns. He says that he teaches sales and recommends 5 follow-ups with a combination of emails and voicemails. The last one should mention that it will be the last contact, and they can feel free to reach out if they would like to.
Okay, perfect. That's a great answer. And I am sure, Guy, if they're interested in what you're selling, they are going to call you back. Now, Guy, of course, has been a long time friend for many, many years and is doing superbly well. So, Paul, I know some of the people who have signed up are friends of Troy's, and they are not familiar with one of the most magnificent ways to train and have repetition and reinforcement for training they've had. So can we go back to FRIPPVT, and we encourage anyone who has not done so to go to FRIPPVT, as in virtualtraining.com, and take a free trial. There you are. There's me without my glasses, of course, because I didn't have to see at that point. So fill in a free trial. Just your name and email address is fine. And you will receive a free chapter on openings, a free chapter on stories, and a free chapter on sales. And we will show the beginning of the first chapter that you'll receive that you will want to watch again and again. If we can go to sales, superstar sales presentations. Within FRIPPVT, there are 12 different courses made up of multiple chapters, all aspects of presenting, of course, online to your boss, in a sales presentation or a speech. So if you can start up superstar sales presentations, the inside secrets.
Welcome to Superstar Sales Presentations, the Inside Secrets. In this course, you will learn the secrets of making your sales presentations more compelling. This will give you a seemingly unfair advantage over your competition. If you're ready, click the Start Training button. Life is a series of sales situations. Every day you sell yourself, your ideas, your value, your point of view, your product, or your service. Every sales conversation and presentation is a missed or captured opportunity. If you sound the same as everybody else, you have no advantage. This course is looking at what you are learning about effective presentations, specifically as it relates to the sales process.
All right.
All right, good. So we hope that you will be interested and take a free trial. If you are one of my VT users, remember, a day without FRIPPVT is a miserable day. So with that, are there any more questions or comments, Paul?
Not right now.
All right, then let us do a quick review. 1, master the technique to communicate online, whether it is written, an email, a request for a proposal, or a conversation. Make it as you focused as possible. Design your presentation to prove your premise. And in a sales presentation, your premise is your company will be better off selecting us as your vendor. You might not say that, however, that is the premise that you're proving. And you do this by focusing on the information that they have given you in advance. And don't be afraid to go deeper and deeper. Can you give me a specific example? When you say you have opportunities, specifically what opportunities? Any more opportunities? If you're losing sales, how many sales? How large are the sales? How many salespeople? Give stories, and remember, your stories are using the words of your satisfied client. So success, solution, or what is it? Situation, solution, success, formula. And Guy Burns says that you have to follow up 5 times. You can always put them on a list to keep in touch with them. I wouldn't let them totally die. But there is a point where if they genuinely were interested, they would get back to you eventually, no matter how busy they are. What I will say is how often I am amazed that I hear from people. For example, I sent a proposal last September for a training program. Well, this is now June, and they just came back and said, could you speak at this management retreat? So that and the person who requested the proposal last September had bought some products from me in 2010. So there is, it is good to keep in touch, perhaps on your newsletter or a 3-monthly update or information. Because as I like to say, and you're familiar with this, it's not your client or prospect's job to remember you. It is your obligation and responsibility to make sure they don't have the chance to forget you. So TroyHarrison.com, get his top 10 secrets for instantly turning your sales force around. He has some very interesting books, and believe me, when technology works out, we will get him back, and you will certainly be the first to know. Paul, any other questions or comments?
No other question. Excuse me. No other questions. Guy did say thank you very much, and he will see you at Lady and the Champs.
Oh, good. Yes, for those of you who are part of the Lady and the Champs community, we have our 9th Lady and the Champs coming up in 2 weeks. And so next week, Paul, we have another Sherry Leventon, which is Heart and Sell. And these are 12 techniques every sales professional needs to know. So if you signed up for this webinar, you will have to unsubscribe or you will hear about it. As always, thank you very much, Paul. If you have any any pithy points, please tweet them, hashtag FRIPPVT. Thank you for your support and your interest. Happy selling, and hopefully we'll see you next week.